Let's call the work section to order for March 13th, 2023. As the supervisor usually does, we take care of the items called resolution and motion. My understanding is the first resolution, which is the corrective action policy amendments, Joe Dugan is going to read. If that's okay with everyone. And the resolution B, second, the insurance coverage for Main Road Barn. And JJ will do that. If that's all right. That brings us to the first motion. We have a lateral restriction. We're going to ask a motion for that. The need is apparent from the information supplied on the lateral restriction application. Is there any problem with that? And I think I just say call for a motion and seconded. Entertain
a motion.
That's the verb I need to
Yes.
incorporate. And then you do the discussion of it, or is just call for the vote? What's the
You do discussion first, you can get a first and second
Any
discussion,
comments?
vote.
Okay,
There you go.
first and second.
Discussion, vote. Yes. I'll
Yeah,
entertain
you're
a
talking
motion.
to
You get a
First and
first
second
and
motion.
second, yeah, right.
and then discussion, right? Then vote. Got it.
Yes.
I just wanted to verify it for okay on that. Are there any other items with respect to that we need to cover? I think it's done. Moving on to planning. I'm trying to recollect if anything from our council. With respect to planning, am I correct in this stipulating that we are, with respect to tonight's second and third public hearing for local law 1 and local law 2 for 2023, that we're still discussing the recommendations or the suggestions that the planning board has submitted.
I believe we discussed the planning board's suggestions. If anybody has any further comments they want to make, I'm happy to hear them. Otherwise, they can be stated in the public hearing. And then we're waiting for Erie County Planning to give approval for all 3 of the items that there's public hearing for tonight.
And we,
So assuming that they have no comment or no comment that's going to change things, I'll have resolutions ready for the following, for our next meeting, for the 27th.
so the verbiage then that I need to use, back foot down. Well, you see, right. Yeah. The statement I had incorporated was planning board comments have been received and are being evaluated. That's an incorrect statement.
Right.
They have been evaluated.
Yes, and I commented on
So
that.
I can discount that and cross it out. Or I
And
simply need to bring to the
Unless
attention.
any of the board members had any thoughts after they had more time to review them.
So I guess I'm curious about the verbiage with respect. Planning board comments have been received and discussed by the town board. Are there any further? I'll try and remember them. They're not being evaluated, they've been discussed. Okay, just needed to verify that. And the entirety, 1, 2, and 3, we're still awaiting for the Erie County's response.
Correct.
And what date does that end when we can do it if they choose not to respond?
They have 30 days,
They have 30 days.
and I will have to double check the date that it was sent to them, but I know that we're not at the 30 days
No, we're
yet,
not.
but we
I
will
didn't
be by the
anticipate.
next.
But we anticipate on the 27th that we would
Yeah, I
be.
think it was on the 20th or the 21st, somewhere around.
That's fine. So it's like a pocket veto. If we don't hear from them, we may move on, correct? Just checking.
Dr. Burke, can I add one other thing under planning, just for you guys to think about? Stage Road, so Kelly Schultz has an 8-lot subdivision that he's proposing there. That's not on it's not on here yet, but we're working on it, they're still going through review. One thing that I have a question about that we've done in the past, but really haven't done very much recently, is drainage easements on parcels. The reason why I'm bringing it up for this one is they're proposing 2 dry detention ponds kind of in the backyards of some of these properties to meet some of our requirements.
Are these properties on the south side of Stage
Yes,
in their entirety?
wait a second. No, they're on the north side.
They're on the north side.
North side.
Okay,
Kelly Schultz is basically, he's got that big
yeah,
parcel.
right,
and
on the
he's-
north side.
Yes. So the thing is he is proposing, because we have drainage requirements, some dry detention ponds in those areas. My concern is that those detention ponds will become the kind of property of those owners of those parcels. If you ever had a problem with them, there really isn't a good way for us to, like, if in an emergency, so for example, their outlet pipe gets clogged and the town, you know, upstream people are starting to get, you know, there's water backing up or things like that. Now they're kind of in a hole, so it isn't huge, but still in the past, we've done kind of drainage easements down the side. Just in case that in an emergency, we need to go and do some kind of maintenance on them. This is one case where I'm starting to think it might be worthwhile to do something like that again. But I'm open to discussion on that. The pros and cons. The cons are you have a drainage easement, then people start assuming that you are absolutely going to do the work for them, which should not be the case.
Are we
But-
constrained to do anything about the drainage on private property?
We are not. But
Yeah,
the thing
But
is,
if it's part of the project. Right, if it's part of where you have to have that in there. Which is what he's proposing, then it gets turned over, like on McNeely Road, and then it gets forgotten about.
Yeah.
That's, I think where you're going, right?
yeah, and just the thing of if there was ever, yes, we can send a letter to say, hey, it's on your property, you need to clean it. But also you could have a situation like in a big storm or something like that, that you may want to have a way to get back there and basically rip out the pipe. You know, what it is they throttle these down with like a 3-inch pipe to only let a certain amount of water out. But under, you know, years of neglect, they can become clogged. And then, you know, if you have a big storm, you want to have the ability to have somebody get down there and fix it if you really need to.
Is there a distinction between a retention and a detention pond?
Yes,
And the detention is to slow down the kinetic energy of the water?
it's to restrict it, but only for a short period of time. So there's no standing water in there. There's not supposed to be standing water in there,
After how many hours?
48 hours.
40? So
So-
that's called a detention.
Yes, a retention pond has water below kind of where the outlet is
Got it.
to
Thank
allow
you. Okay.
permanent retention.
So it is to the advantage of the town for this parcel to continue its development, to ensure that there are detention ponds in the project?
Yes, because what we're trying to do there is make sure that the development does not increase because you're adding impervious area. So you want to have detention ponds in there to basically prevent downstream flooding because you're adding impervious area to the project.
And the recommendation that you brought to our attention is obviously going to be brought to the planning board's attention
Well,
for
that's-
discussion,
I
or
first was bringing it up here just to kind of see.
get the flavor of whether we're interested in pursuing.
Yeah. And also to, you know, talk with the attorneys to see if they've seen any of this before. You know, I know we've done it in the past. I know I worked with Nathan on it. I can't remember if I worked with Brendan on them. We don't do them all the time, but we have done them in the past.
You did one right across the street on Howell Road with Kevin Stolt
Yeah,
with an easement for emergency easement,
yeah. So,
one there.
I certainly will defer to my colleagues who may have much more experience in detention ponds, having been on the here longer than I. But I'm sort of cold to think about it. Could take a little time.
That's
The
fine.
only thing
Again,
I would
I
ask
just
is,
bring it up.
with the attorneys, is that something that could be put in in order for that subdivision to go through the easement? Is that something that?
well, that's why I'm talking about it now. I still have comments back to them. So I've not given engineering review approval yet even, so it still hasn't, it'll still after that have to go to the planning board and then to you guys. So there's still time here. So I'm kind of bringing it up now.
Patty?
I just think the emergency easement makes sense, from what you're saying.
Yes.
And do you have to collaboratively work with them?
Well, what I do is essentially Metzger provides the plans. and then I review them. And I oftentimes, so I'm in like my fourth round of review comments on this one. They've actually reduced the size of the subdivision from 11 lots to 8.
Okay.
So Scott, on those ponds, is it in the engineering or the plans where you have to keep growth from coming up in on them?
There's stone that's there, but the thing is just again, nature's still gonna. Any kind of pond that you have is going to have to be maintained.
Yeah, yeah.
It's just, when is it gonna have to be maintained and how big of an issue do you think it's gonna be? And the problem that happens is you build a subdivision or you put together a subdivision plan. And then somebody buys the property and then doesn't really.
Yeah,
know
that's
that
exactly
they-
what happened on McNeely Road behind Nathan's, all the way through to past the junkyard, all those homes that went up there on the south side of McNeely, there was one big pond put in there.
Yeah.
And,
And the person
the
who owns
homeowner
that
wants to
lot,
maintain and keep it from bushes and trees from growing up in it, and
yeah,
And-
then it doesn't
it's,
happen.
yeah.
So if the town grants an easement, the town accepts the obligation to,
No, so the idea is that the town doesn't put the easement together, so what would happen is we would request. From Kelly Schultz, hey, we want an easement, a drainage easement in case we need it in an emergency. So we want a public drainage easement so that we could get from Stage Road where
northward.
these ponds are.
Mhm.
To do something if we had to in an emergency. We're not taking any kind of liability, but I'll leave that up to the attorneys to state that for sure. We're just saying that as part of your approval process, we would like a 20-foot easement, this side of the lot line to the town of Newstead that we could go in and, get vehicles down there if we had to maintain drainage.
And your comment also mentioned that the people would start to be the feeling that that is under the purview of the town to maintain it on a regular basis. Is that what you said?
No, I'm just saying there, you don't have that. You do not,
With an easement, you do not have to.
correct.
Just gives you the right to go in
It just
there.
gives you the
Only
right to
if
go in
we-
there.
Who determines whether it is an emergency?
Well, that's why it's a public easement. Mike or myself can say, we gotta go in, you have the easement, therefore you can go in.
And without it, we can't. And solve the problem.
Without,
Well, you need
for a
permission.
property owner, and again, if you've got a flood. Trying to get a hold of somebody if they've already left town or something like that can be tricky.
So because of the drainage issue in that area, it is going to be a realistic problem at some point in the future.
Is it going to probably get clogged? Yes. Could water still get through? I don't know. Again, it's just one of those things that if you're asking me, how do you best protect the town? You have an easement here in case you have an emergency.
It sounds reasonable then. As long as council has some thoughts on how to verbiage, so it.
Well, we
it's clear
can
to-
also put that on the developer. A lot of them would say, you want a 20-foot easement on that side of the parcel line or something like that. Show it on your plans and provide us the legal document.
And it's there in perpetuity when the property's sold to an next, et
Yeah, it
cetera.
becomes part of the subdivision. Yeah, it's
It's underneath.
Is there any further comments on that, Patty?
No,
Then to move forward in terms of what you recommend, that in the benefit of the town, we should have an easement.
Yeah. And I'll ask that next review. Memo. Again, just wanted to make sure before I talk to you guys.
Right.
So I didn't mean to make a big deal out of it, but I just wanted to make sure you guys were aware, because we haven't done one for a while.
Well, I think in reading the planning board minutes, there was the mention of the Kelly Schultz development in the large spot, so that's what I was aware of. I didn't see too much about the detention repentance. Any further comment on planning? With respect to water, sewer, water updates?
We've been in contact with DJM. It's still too wet out there, and they also need the asphalt plants to open.
That's for the
Restoration.
Right.
So they're thinking mid-April or so before they get out there, which makes sense.
Yes, it does.
The only other thing I would bring up is, Leisurewood, I know I copied you on it, but not everybody.
Right, when we had the meeting, was a week ago, it seems like ages ago, we had the joint between the village of Akron, and we found out, it was actually 2 weeks before that when I said to go. Anyways, I communicated that information, the next morning, which was Tuesday, I think the 7th.
Yeah.
To Scott, and then he responded that thanks, and he communicated with Metzger Engineering. And the most recent is Metzger responded by saying, it was too bad, sorry to hear it, but.
Yeah.
That's that.
Yeah.
I don't know what more we can do
We
to
can't-
push the village of Akron. I don't want to harass them, but they clearly, as I understood it at that meeting, we don't have a data, a volume flow for our present residents that might build up, especially at the Clarence Center, Hake Road. So therefore, I think we just,
Absolutely
Right.
understood. It's not,
that's okay to do.
that's a very valid response.
Yeah.
It's something that we have to get to Leisurewood so they can figure out their next plan of action.
Who's obligated to respond to the request of Leisurewood brought to the town? Must we do that in the letter?
I
Or how
already
does
did that to Metzger, and Metzger
Yeah,
is their
Metzger.
engineer, so
Thank you.
we're good.
Yeah, it went along in 5 short days. Anything else on the water and sewer culvert grant?
We can
That's-
remove the culvert grant until potentially the next CFAs in July. And something I'll talk with Don at some point to make sure Nathan and Bernie are looking for that next time.
That's the next round of grant applications. This-
Yeah.
Are we still taking care of the one that was deemed serious? Did that ever get resolved with you and Mike?
I believe so. Sorry, I'm looking the wrong way. I'll double check with Mike, but I think we've taken care of the ones that are in the biggest concerns. Now we're kind of getting to the moderate concerns. It was actually very nice this week, just to keep you guys aware. Mike is doing some work on Draper, so he called me up to say, hey, I'm gonna be working in the area, culvert 124, does it need to be replaced or not? And I said, I pulled up the pictures again and said, no, that one's fine. So, he and I are communicating and making sure when he does road work, we keep in mind the potential culvert work at the same time.
Okay, thank you.
I appreciate
Good
this out
news.
there.
Yeah. Number 4, buildings, library. John, you sort of addressed that.
Yeah, the HVAC system should ship out August 10th. Christine has applied for an extension on it, and that's all there is on that part. of the grant.
Do we know where it's being shipped from or where it's
No, didn't
originated?
ask.
And she's asked for an extension of the grant
Yeah.
through the county. Is that
No, I think that's through the state.
through the state?
Or, construction, New York State construction grant for libraries.
Yeah, that's fine. So she feels confident that it will be approved?
Oh, yeah, it'll be approved and they can extend it for however long it takes.
Fine, no problem. Sounds good. Thanks for taking care of that. Grants, parks, and CDBG. The CDBG, wasn't that already resolved with respect to the?
So I did correspond with Paul DiOrlando, and he did say that if there was another project at the senior center, we could potentially use the CDBG grant towards a different project other than the senior van, since there's no need for the senior van. I did send an email to Sarah. I have not heard back from her yet.
That's right.
I'll follow up with her. I'm surprised she didn't email me back. I'm concerned she didn't get my email. So.
Yeah,
I
with some of his 10K.
something in the starting block, right?
Yeah, so I'll call her this week and touch base, and I'll let you guys know next week.
Okay. Parks,
Yeah, just, I had a phone conference with Bernie and Nathan from Rotella this past week. They, as well as I am reaching out to Gallivan's office and Langworthy's office to see if we can't spur forward the Parks grant a little bit. I also spoke with them about, the emergency manager's request. They feel that this is right up the alley of, again, funds that would come with from one of our representatives. So they were gonna reach out, I believe, to Danny to see if we might be able to piggyback the generator for that, for the denial in with his equipment request, which would be up the cost, which would be more appealing to our representatives. So we're looking at going that avenue on his request. And then
His
the,
being Galvin's.
yes, Galvin and, yeah, Langworthy. And the last thing, just to piggyback on Sarah for the van, Nathan and Bernie asked if you and Sarah could keep them in the loop as to where we are with the van and where we are in process with it, and that if there's anything you guys need to have them help assist with, they're more than willing.
Okay.
So, because I said usually at some point you have to do like final reports or whatever, and typically that's something they handle for us.
Okay.
So he's just asked that you guys keep them in the loop on the van.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
Anything serious on number 6? Guess, well, no further information that I have,
Same thing with dog kennel, DCO, no update.
and the bills are being paid for that tonight. For the euthanization, euthanized, et cetera. SPCA contract,
I called, left a message, have not heard back. So I will send a letter and
That's
just ask
strange,
them to
isn't it?
make that change. Like I said, I don't think there's any huge rush, so.
fine, good. Cemetery update,
Not heard any.
nothing from the gentleman that, so we don't even know if he's called. Which was probably Spectrum.
I have reached out 3 times to our representative from Spectrum, and he's not answering my emails. Probably because I've been all over him about getting the internet upgraded at the senior center, which he is sort of stonewalling me on. So Nick happened to be in here Friday, and I mentioned it to Nick because he has contacts through Spectrum.
Okay,
And he knows another higher up, like this guy's supervisor, contacted Spectrum. So he reached out to him this morning. And Nick said I should be hearing something from one of them in the next couple of days. So hopefully we're moving
very
forward.
propitious meeting.
Yeah.
And that Nick was in.
Yeah.
Cool. Are there any items that you want to talk in executive session that we have after, because we've got 3 public meetings coming up? And I don't want to keep the people waiting. First one, I think, is at 7:15.
Yes.
I don't have anything. Do you guys have anything?
No.
The communication has been quite good. I need to look at it, et cetera. And then jot down notes, so we keep moving forward. Thanks again to council for the information, and again, just a reminder, 2 weeks from tonight, which I think would be the 27th, the board meeting is at 5:30. We'll accommodate by 7 o'clock for the birthday party for the bicentennial. So I just mentioned that again, so we'd have a preliminary work session, then followed by the regular.
The work session starts at 5:30.
Yes, that's my understanding. If we're going to maintain the same,
What time's the meeting start?
well, as close as possible after
Is it gonna be 6?
5:30, whatever would seem reasonable, yeah.
We will have quite a few resolutions next
Yeah,
week
that's what
because
I'm
of,
asking.
so the meeting is probably gonna take us at least half hour, 45 minutes.
I
would
was
think.
anticipating 5:30 to 6 would be work
Don't we have
session
to
if necessary.
publicly- Do we change that so that for the time of the meeting start?
Yes.
Okay, so the meetings, so we're at work session
Yeah, Marilyn.
5:30 and
Yeah.
then 6 o'clock is when the meeting's gonna start.
Yeah, Marilyn will have it in the Bugle, and then,
I'd like to
We'll
start
put it on
the
the
regular
site.
meeting at 6,
On the
Yeah,
site and
that's-
on the website.
so the best we can do, if not sooner, but
Oh, we just won't talk about anything in work session, that's not what's necessary.
that's what I anticipate, because some of the times the work session is we're done way ahead.
Yeah.
But I do want to finish. I think we should finish before the 7 o'clock. That's all. If there's no further problem, then we have 3 public meetings to address.
It's bad.
Yeah.